the newspapers behind us now, moving away from the segment to look at the issues before us this morning, going into our very first conversation for today. And we did tell you that we'll be talking about insecurity, the release of these children, 100 of them who were kidnapped in Niger State. This morning we have joining us in the studio Austin Aigbe. Austin is, of course, going to speak to us concerning these issues. Austin, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
How is Wademos today?
Wademos is good. I mean, Christmas outlook.
All right, Austin wouldn't be talking about that alone. We would also be delving into the coup, an attempted coup in West Africa, and we'll be finding out exactly what the driving force for this is. Of course, the story of the attempted coup yesterday still happened yesterday, so we'll be looking at all of these issues as Austin is joining us now. Austin, you're welcome once again. Okay, let's first get your reaction to the release of 100 out of 239 school children who were abducted from St. Mary's Catholic School, and their teachers as well.
You know, when I saw the news, I was a bit, should I congratulate the administration or should I be more critical about the release? You know, following the recent release, Kebbi and Coup, somehow negotiation is working. I don't know whether it's intentional or it is created. I mean, when you work with terrorist organizations, release of schoolgirls is not just by, hello, how are you? Please release them. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Something has gone on the ground. Can the government just let us know what has gone on the ground? How much did you pay if there was any resources? What negotiation happened? Who was the go-to individual? So we started identifying the real challenge of this country. Some individuals went to schools, and in fact, we are told, I think that was in Kebbi, that the military just advanced out of a location. There you are, the insurgency went in. Who made that call? Until we begin to identify or be serious in this country to deal with this, nip it on the bud squarely, we'll continue to have these circles of kidnapping, and because of just 2 or 3 kidnapping, again, not just, let me not undermine it, because of those kidnappings, the entire school system was shut down in northern Nigeria. A whole school system, including almost the FCT. FCT had to rush them and say, quickly, school that was supposed to move up to December the 13th or so, had to be concluded before December 2nd.
Everywhere, school actually had to close earlier than scheduled, you know, on their timetable.
Because of what?
Because of insecurity.
Because of insecurity.
And then we're having, you know, the number of children that are out of school. Which of the papers talked about it today? That government is raising alarm. 700,000 children out of school in just 1 month. And these are students that have not been abducted. We're now joined the number of those who were abducted and have left school at the same time. You can imagine the number we're
just
talking
last
about.
Thursday, the data was 22 million out-of-school children, not those registered in school at all. Northern Nigeria. Last Thursday, a data from a meeting where somebody presented, 22 million out-of-school children. So these are the drivers of insecurity. The recruitment process. Of course, we can't let alone poverty, inequality, unemployment, social inequality, and all of that. Those are bases. But the recruitment process, and the presenter was arguing that we need to cut short that recruitment process. How can 22 million children be out of school in Nigeria? Let alone, maybe the other 50 million are in schools already, but they be shut down, so literally they are no longer in school. Those are not the ones I'm talking about, because government has also made effort to try to do some digital or virtual learning process. But these 22 million are not part of that system. These are recruitment processes where young soldiers, we're going to deal with young soldiers in Nigeria. Most people are not talking about the youngness of these militia groups that are being recruited. Huge number from that 22 million. Cut that number. What can you do? You can do a lot of things I think the government already knows. Then, I think when government talked about Operation Safe Corridor, which is a fantastic idea, repented Boko Haram, oh, they've repented. Can we have them launched back to the system? And we're beginning to hear now that they're in the military. It has an advantage, but what of the disadvantage? Because somewhere, elsewhere, I was talking to someone, I said, that's a good model. Where you recruit these bad guys who have had opportunity of training or using arms, you don't take them back to the community. Take them to somewhere they can be more profitable. And likely, that profitable venture will be the military. But how can you track them so that they don't become moles within the military? And what are we seeing is gradually looking like that. So what did we do wrong with Operation Safe Corridor? These are some of the questions I think military folks, the intelligence system need to go in and then reinterrogate. If militia groups captures an individual and kill that individual, then you capture a militia group and you de-radicalize that militia group and you send that militia group back to the system. What does that tell for a system? I mean, there are too many questions to be asked. But above all, there are maybe these guys who are repentant Boko Haram are the ones doing the negotiation. Maybe.
Well, Austin, let me come back to you because when Nkoli and I were talking about this issue earlier on, she asked me, and I told her that the first things that came to my mind, because she talked about happiness and then hope. Now, when we look at the release of these children, are you confident that the others will be released soon?
No, the same process that led to the release of half of the number, or more than half of the number, can also do the same thing. So apparently what the insurgents are doing, at first, when those coup attacks started recently, the first signal that got to me was body shield. There's a Trump who propaganda made it look as if it was going to attack Nigeria, which is not correct. He said it was going to deal with insurgency. And then I'm sure you are aware that there's an agreement signed between the Nigerian government and the US government on certain cooperation. Now that Trump is coming and wants to invade, there are two things. So you need body shield. And the best form of body shield will be kids. So you put those kids around, so it will be difficult for some kind of launch, rocket launch or whatever launch America will want to engage in. So America will need to, first of all, rescue these kids before you engage the terrorists. So that was the first signal. Then I said, later the day or 2 days after, the first set were released, Kirby, I was like, oh, wow, what happened? No phone call. No gunfire. This is fantastic. So then they kept the others, Niger, and soon now we have released half of it. What is the signal? What is the negotiation? What agreement have you reached with the terrorists? If we know that America had a deal with Nigeria, what deal does the Nigerian government have with terrorists? So it's okay. We will try to manage Trump so Trump don't evade. Could that be the agreement? I don't know. But the government officials, those who negotiated this deal, they know. I am saying that whatever negotiation that you would have made, let it be national interest negotiation. What does it matter? Because sometimes we had a class,
Austin, let me come in there. You keep talking about negotiation. But constantly over time, government has said, we will not negotiate with bandits.
So what kind of negotiation? You will always negotiate. If a Nigerian government does negotiate, how did you release them? Did you go with the might of the military? So some will say, I think that's more like a US philosophy. We don't negotiate with bandits. We go in, we strike. Fantastic. How did we return the Kirby student or pupils? Was it a phone call? If you don't release them, I am coming after you. Was that the? Even if you use that, it was negotiation. Negotiation means that you are the core or a conversation between two opposite sides and agree on a deal. Then that deal leads to certain action. In this case, release of these kidnapped girls. That did not happen when Dapchi girls were kidnapped. That did not happen when Chibok happened. So what is happening differently? Do we give the glory to the administration? I am saying maybe. But Nigerians need to know, at least, maybe not now, because of the classified information, I agree, because it's important we classify some of those information so that terrorists don't also use those strategies to release them to then begin to use it against the Nigerian government. Oh. However, it is important that we know if you don't clear them out, they will come back again. The negotiation, I think we are not talking about is when you give in exchange for, there's some monetary rewards that we have seen elsewhere, i.e. casinos, etc.
Okay, so it's also possible that part of the negotiation is don't tell anybody how you release those people and all of that. So, but the point is really because from what Kunle said earlier, is the fact that, you know, kidnapping shouldn't even happen at all, really, particularly for children who you have sent to school, which is supposed to be a sanctuary for them, a safe haven for them, and then they get abducted. You were asking something earlier about what happened to the Safe School Initiative. I think there's a probe going on that as well. You know, we also have some kind of parents who are agonizing over their own children who are still left there in captivity. But this is happening shortly after, or I would say just a few days after the new Minister of Defense was, you know, sworn in. And then you also have, I think the NSA visited Niger some time ago and also talked about the fact that these children will come back and assured parents and the teachers from the school. And this is happening. Do you attribute this to one of the many successes that will be recorded in the coming days with this new appointment of the defense chief?
Well, let me congratulate General Musa, retired. You see, there are certain commentary a leader make that sent a shocking wave across. While I would congratulate him, I actually think that he's not the one to do the job. It's the president that will do the job. If the president doesn't support his action, it will be a non-entity. I recall in this country, Alex Bade, now late, made a comment that in 6 months, we will clear Boko Haram. And I think he meant it. Down the line, 6 months had passed. Suddenly, the commentaries on clearing Boko Haram died. Boko Haram and all of the insurgency group increased, capturing locations, including his own city, General late Bade's community. Even his own home was attacked. I think General Christopher Musa, retired, should, because he's just coming out from the environment, once a theater commander, I think that he knows what to do. But that thing he wants to do, if it's against the political dynamics, a call may come from somewhere and ask him to step down. And I'm saying that the only person that will give him the backing is Mr. President.
Austin, are you saying that we're playing politics with security?
If we aren't playing politics with security, why are we here today? late General Bacha said, if insecurity continues more than 24 hours, there is somebody, it is becoming political. I think this is political. I think that the security challenge in this country has become oil company in quote, where people make so much resources. I think very importantly that until we solve the greatest problem of politicization or ethnicization of insecurity in this system, wherein somebody come out to speak to say, leave them. Some of them are not criminals. Some of them, their cattle were rustled. And leave them. Can we give them maybe what we did in Niger Delta? Give them amnesty. Can we give them amnesty? But you are giving them resources, huge sums of money, to go regroup. You see what has happened? They come, they submit some dead guns, and then they say, okay, we are off banditry. Then the money you gave them is going to buy AK-47, AK-97, AK, whatever AK name. What have you stopped? Have you cut that process of recruitment? Have you caught the reason behind the insurgency in the first place? Have you dealt with it? Let me not give kidnapping to the northern region. Kidnapping is as long as, you recall in the Niger Delta, you recall, I told somebody in Benin many years ago, I said, you see what's going on in this kidnapping? People will kidnap for 200 naira. And the guy laughed. It happened about a decade ago in Benin, where somebody kidnapped a child and said he wants to eat. And 200 naira, 250 or 300 naira solved the problem. And the child was released. It's becoming an enterprise. It's becoming a business, and we must make it.
All right, Austin, let's leave Nigeria for now. And let's talk about coups in West Africa, attempted coup in Benin Republic. What exactly is going on? What is the driving force? Now, we all read online yesterday that there was an attempt to take over the government in Benin Republic. How did you receive that news?
It wasn't surprising, because I've talked about it just a day before. When I spoke to West Africa Democracy Radio, I told them.
It wasn't surprising to you?
Yeah, it was surprising to me, yes.
You were expecting that to happen?
So, this is it. Let me go somewhere. You know, but when I say this, when I broke the news that the coup in Bissau was staged, people didn't believe it until Goodluck Jonathan validated that commentary. I said, if ECOWAS doesn't do the needful in Bissau, the next stop will be in Benin. And I thought it was going to be in Benin sometime in April next year during the election, the presidential election. But I didn't know it was going to come too fast. In fact, I didn't know it was going to come the next day after making that commentary. You see what's happening is bad governance. It's a governance issue. When leaders, African leaders or West African leaders, begin to think about themselves as the only suitable individuals that can rule a country, turning an entire system into a traditional institution, it's a bane. For instance, I'm from Benin proudly. The Oba of Benin position can never be contested. As I am now, I already know it's going to be the successor. I won't contest it. That's traditional institution. But when elected institution, democratic institution, or so-called whatever name, because people are beginning to give some credibility and otherwise to democracy, you were elected, having spent about 10 years now in position, you suddenly realize that this five years is not enough. Let's move it to 7 years. You change the constitution to move to 7 years. The fear, I'm sure the politicians and those in opposition are thinking already, is that it may move it to 7 years now, and ahead of April of next year, it may end up changing the constitution to allow another term. Since we have just changed the constitution, so it's now okay to recontest like we saw in Côte d'Ivoire.
But he already said he was going to leave in 2026 after the election.
You are very correct. Alassane Ouattara said he will not contest again, but he's president of Côte d'Ivoire. He suddenly realized that the person who is going to come in, maybe died or something happened, he recontested. And you know, there's a pattern. Any opposition, you try to oppress dissent. It happened in Côte d'Ivoire. Babo was disqualified from contesting the election in Côte d'Ivoire. Most of those strong men or strong individuals in Côte d'Ivoire that ought to be very strong against Alassane Ouattara, the president of Côte d'Ivoire, were all disqualified. And then the opposition could not organize. Then we went to Guinea-Bissau. The same thing happened. Disqualify the main opposition. But what difference happened was that the opposition now organized themselves to support an individual. And the individual was already accustomed to victory. 63% of total vote cast ahead of the incumbent. Coup happened. And the person who announced the coup was the one who supposedly the coup should be against. It doesn't make sense. Those patterns, check the patterns. These are early warning. So you move on. I told them, I said, the next will be a francophone country. So I wasn't no longer talking about Conakry, because there's already a coup there. Niger, there's a coup. Burkina Faso, there's a coup. Mali, there's a coup. So where? Benin. I just talked about Benin a day before and a coup. Attempted coup. So, but the military, I think what the military did in Benin was the mind game. They went on the studio, captured them, announced whatever they announced, but you never captured the president. That's not a coup.
Now, Austin.
And they were calling on citizens support the coup. Citizens support the coup. How can citizens support the coup?
Austin, let me come in here. I'm looking at a number of newspaper headlines this morning that we've seen. The leadership says 14 arrested over failed Benin coup. And there's another one I saw earlier on. But the issue really is, you reeled out the names of the countries where you now have military administrations. Is this becoming fashionable again in West Africa?
That's where it's going. If you're, as a student of international politics, you understand military intervention in politics. But in fact, it's a whole course, military intervention in politics. That by the time elected officials, civilian authority, began to undermine the principles on which they were elected, everybody tend to cry and ask for support from the military. What happened in Niger, which is more like the most recent, and of course, what happened afterward, the so-called invasion of Niger and all the aftermath of that, when the military struck, you saw the street was agog with supporters. The Beninese military thought it will happen. So they were asking military citizens come and support. If the citizens are trooped out to support that military action, I tell you, that coup will not be.
Austin,
okay,
you recall that it's been said severally here in Nigeria that the worst civilian administration is better than the best military administration. And these are unelected people who shoot their way into power. And invariably, from what we have seen in history, they become dictators and leave the country worse off than what they came in ostensibly to prevent.
I was in this country when we had military rule. I was here when I studied military and African politics. I understand what you are saying. But if the people who are supposed to be the people's people, I don't know how to put it.
The people's representatives.
The people's representative or the people's president, it will not be hard on opposition because the people throws you over the opposition. Look at what happened in Benin. Most of the opposition candidates or allies have been, they are under military, they are under oppressive mode right now. If that happened in Nigeria, of course that is not happening in Nigeria. What is happening in Nigeria is a different model, and we are going to cry over one state party. I am not talking about one state party. For instance, it's not my problem. If the administration
you mean one party state?
One party state, yes. I don't have a problem with it. You know why? If the opposition aligns and agree to face this, so be it. But if opposition says, no, we will go on our path, so be it. But when you begin to oppress those who are not going your path, it becomes a challenge. And that's not what's happening in Nigeria.
So should military coup be the only way, really, particularly in West Africa sub-region, the way to change government? Because each time we point accusing finger on the president for probably attempting to, change the constitution to suit whatever desire, the president cannot single-handedly change the constitution. That is why we have other arms of government, and then you see this happening. So it's an institutional problem, really, isn't it? And should that be the only way to change governance in Africa if we don't like the way the leaders are going?
So that's the only alternative. My PhD work is on leadership and democratic backsliding in Nigeria. I'm trying to look at a few years. And I've seen that every year, every election year, we always hope for a better administration over the last. What then happened? The new administration you hope for to be better than the previous, people begin to look, well, I wish the previous was around. Why? Because there's something wrong with the new leadership. When you say the president is an individual, the president is not an individual. The president is an institution. The president appoints, and that's why I have a problem, of course, with the presidential...
the National Assembly members, for instance, are elected, and
yes,
by the people
too. They belong to the party. And that's why by the time you have, right now in the National Assembly, the ruling party has over 73 senators. And they already have over 230 House of Representative members.
But there is separation of powers, isn't it? It shouldn't have come into play, even if you belong to the ruling party. Should you allow the wrong things to be done?
So you're talking about the wrong thing. What about the good thing? That's where I'm going. I'm actually going to the good thing. So if the president intends to do a good thing, for instance, the appointment of General Musa, people argue, if you go on Twitter, X, you see that people even say that the president have listened to Nigerians. So why did the president, assumably, listen to Nigeria with the appointment of the defense chief? A number of commentary could come in. Number one, we have looked around to say even this position you call Minister of Defense, two former governors who arguably had concern with their own state, insecurity-wise, suddenly become running this affair and controlling the military. If you look at the political landscape over the last 2 years, they didn't really do a good job. Not because they were not ministers. The NSA was actually the one calling for military conversation.
All right.
Most of the meetings between then General Musa Christopher was with the NSA and not necessarily with the Minister of Defense. There is a political underlining. Again,
Austin,
politicization of the process.
Let me ask you to hold on, and we need to go on a break now to bring Kakaki Social to the fore. It's almost time for Kakaki Social, but we're going on a break now. We'll